Welcome back to another DSCC lab walkthrough. Today we'll be going over lab 1, DC configuration. Our major tasks for today are to create an MMC shortcut on the desktop, create OU and security group structure for our domain, and delegate control to our members. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with lab 1, create MMC shortcut on the desktop. So we'll open up our run prompt and type in mmc.exe. And then we are able to view this console right now. So now as you can see, there are no snap-ins attached to it. So we'll go ahead and add some so that we can manage our Active Directory. Now for this example, we're going to use Active Directory sites and services. Select it from the left-hand side and then click add in that middle button. And then we'll also select our users and computers along with our DNS. And then last but not least, our group policy management. So now once you've selected your snap-ins, go ahead and click OK. Now you can see that I have my snap-ins populated on the left pane. So now I can go ahead and navigate and manage my Active Directory from this centralized console. So instead of having to log into and open up multiple snap-ins, I can just open this one MMC console, and here I can view things like my DNS, my domain and my OU structure. I can view my Active Directory sites and services as well, and also my group policy management. Now, as you notice, when I had the add and remove snap-ins, you can add pretty much any snap-in that comes with Active Directory that you might need or that your administrators might need. So now, the last thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and save this configuration that I set up for my snap-in. That way, every time that I open my MMC, I don't have to go ahead and pretty much re-add all the snap-ins that I just added right now. So I'm going to go ahead and save as and save it on my desktop. And we'll go ahead and name this my admin console. Okay, so now if I close this out, let's close this out as well. You see that I have my little console on my desktop. So now we can go ahead and open that so we can see what it looks like. And give that a second to load. Alright, and as you can tell, like I mentioned earlier, my snap-ins already come pre-configured. I don't have to go ahead and do that step once again. Okay, so now for task 2, we're going to go ahead and create our OU and security group structure for our domain. Now for this scenario, we're using our previously configured domain controller that we used during our prep lab. So I already have some things that are pre-configured in here, but we'll go ahead and run through them so that you guys can see what it would look like if I didn't already have this configured. So first thing I'm going to do before we get started into our OUs is I'm going to look for my default built-in administrator account, and I'm going to reset the password on that account. Now the reason we want to do this is that some configurations on your domain controller or installations of certain services require your built-in administrator to complete that configuration. And it's just an overall easier process if you obviously have the password already configured. This virtual machine was deployed from a template, so I didn't have that password that came with it initially. So this is the reason why we're resetting the password on our default administrator. So now that I've got that reset, we can move on to creating our OUs. Now, under my domain, the first OU that I'm going to want to create is my 11mu OU. Now, if I didn't have that created, I would simply right click on my domain, select new, and select organizational unit. and then I would simply type the name of my OU that I am creating. For this case, it would be 11mu, and then you would simply click on OK, and that's all there is to configuring an OU. So like I said, I already had this domain structure built, but it would be as simple as creating that folder like we just did right now. Now under that OU, I would create any remaining OUs that I have, such as my users, security groups, or maybe other sites that I have under that domain. Now, if you're referencing your lab data sheet from the DSCC course, make sure that you're paying attention to what the structure actually looks like on your lab. Alright, so there I went ahead and created my 11mu users. If I pull over my lab data sheet, I can see that that's my domain root right there. And under that, I will create my 11mu OU, followed by 11mu users. And under my 11mu users, I have even more OUs for further administration and management. So make sure that your OU structure is built correctly. That way, when you get to the group policy management, there isn't a conflict in your security. Okay, now that we've created our remaining OUs, we'll go ahead and add our security groups. So in my security groups OU, I would right click on it, click on new, and navigate down to group. And then I would name my security group, set my scope to global, and my group type as security, which is already set by default. So the only thing I really need to do is add my group name. And we are going to go ahead and create a security group for our help desk admins. Let's go ahead and type in 11mu help desk admins. Once you're done, click OK. And then you can view any of the members. If you open this up from here, you can also add members from this location right here. So now let's go ahead and look for someone to add to our security groups. And what I'm going to do right now is my systems user. Now let's create a system user. So here we'll configure the name of our user. And since I already have my OU structure built, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to make this one up. We'll name this guy Abel, last name Johnson. And then under the full name, we will change this to what the Marine Corps standard is pretty much across the board, which is last name, rank, first name, middle initial if they have one. And then if it was an admin account, you would also put like ADM or something like that in parentheses. Now, under the user logon name, we're going to use first.last. Now, this is the Marine Corps standard for anywhere that doesn't do PKI. Now, pretty much anywhere in the Marine Corps, though, you will see PKI, and that's a little bit of a different configuration. But in this environment, we are not there yet. So we'll leave this guy as first.last for username and password logon. Then on this page, we'll just simply configure the password in accordance with our lab data sheet. So I'm going to leave these pretty much default, but these are some options that you have when creating a new account. You can create his account as disabled, and you might want to do this if you're maybe pre-staging the user accounts for an exercise or anything like that, but the exercise hasn't started. So you don't want to have just these random accounts that are created and enabled for security reasons. Alright, so created our user account for Corporal Johnson. So now we can go ahead and configure his group membership. And I want to add him to, let's say, we're going to add him to 11mu help desk admins, which is a security group that we just created. So this is one way you can add him. You can see there that he was added successfully. Another way is that you can open up the properties of your user and navigate to the member of tab. And right here where you can view it, you can also add it over there at the bottom, and you can also remove him from groups in this location. Another option that you have is navigating to the security group itself and navigating over to the members tab. Now we can see right here that I only have Johnson, Corporal Johnson in there. I can remove him, and then I can go ahead and re-add him from this location. Now this makes it easier if you're adding multiple users, let's say, so that you don't have to go and open up the properties of every single user and add them to the same security group. You can simply navigate your way to this security group, and from this location add multiple users. So let's go ahead and add Corporal Johnson back. We looked him up by first.last, which is his user logon name. Click on apply, and then you see him repopulate in there under the members tab. Okay, so now that I've done that, we're going to go ahead and make sure that our computer and our devices are in the correct OU. So in this environment, I only have my one workstation right now, and I'm going to go ahead and move that to the 11mu workstations because by default they are put in this computer's OU. And that's not where we want it, because later on when we apply group policies, it won't get the appropriate policies because it's not in the correct OU. So we can go ahead and move it by right clicking on it and doing that, or we can simply drag it over to the OU that it needs to be in. So now if I open up my 11mu workstations OU, I see my workstation in that OU. So now, after we moved all our devices to their proper OUs, our next step is to add the XXMU AD administrators to the security group named account operators. So let's go ahead and open up our security groups and navigate to 11mu Active Directory admins. Then we can go ahead and add to a group, and we're going to add them to the account operators group. Now by default, this security group doesn't have any members. This group can create and manage users and groups in the domain, including its own membership and that of the server operators group as well. So now I see that my 11mu Active Directory admin security group is a member of an account operators security group, meaning that anybody who gets added to 11mu Active Directory admins will also be added to the account operators built-in security group. Alright, so now let's go ahead and delegate controls to some of our members. And for this example, we're going to delegate some controls to our systems OU. So go ahead and navigate to your systems OU in your Active Directory. And then we're going to go ahead and right click on that OU and select Delegate Control, which should be your first option under that pop-up menu. So now you get this little window or this wizard that pops up. It's going to run you through the setup of delegating control. Now your first option is to add a user or a group to delegate control to. So right here we want to delegate control to our 11mu systems ISE. Click on OK once you've added that group, and then we'll click on next. Now we can see the common tasks that we can delegate. So for this example, we're gonna reset user password and force password change at next logon. So go ahead and click that box to the left side, and then click on next. And then click on finish once you verified your settings. So now what I just did is that anybody who's a member of my 11mu Systems ISC security group can then reset user passwords and force the change at logon to anybody who's a member of the Systems OU. So now let's go ahead and test that by logging into my workstation. And before I get that far, I'm going to go ahead and install my RSAT tools on the workstation, just like I would with any other ISO. So I'll go to the settings of my virtual machine and my CD drive, and I'll attach the ISO that contains my RSAT tools. Or excuse me, my RSAT. Remote Server Administration Tools. So now that I've added or I've mounted my ISO, I can go ahead and open that up through File Explorer. So I will drag over the most current version of my RSAT and install it on my workstation. Okay, so now that RSAT has finished installing and my computer has restarted, let's go ahead and log back in, and I want to log back in as a member of that System ISC security group. So for this, I'll log in as myself. And now let's open up our users and computers snap-in. So remember, I've delegated control to any member who is a member of my security group of 11mu Systems ISC. And I delegated the common task of being able to change my passwords and force change at logon. So now you see right here that if I go to a user in my Systems OU, I have an option to change that password and even force a logon. Now let's see what happens if I look at someone in my Networks OU. I don't have that option, it's grayed out, and if I try to change that user's password, I get prompted with an access is denied. But if I go back to my Systems OU and try to change Corporal Johnson's password, right, I will still have that option. User must change password at next logon. Now I will attempt to change the password just like I did to my networker. Except for this time, it will be successful. And that's because I delegated controls only to this OU, to that group, not to my networkers.